How can you anonymize data and protect personal information in Excel? That's what I'm going to go over in today's video. So in this data set, I've got a list of names and some test scores. And if I want to send this over to somebody, but I don't want them to know the names associated with these scores, I'd want to make this a bit more anonymous, like put student 1, student 2, whatever the case may be. But to add a layer of encoding on top of that, what we can do is randomize that information as well, just so it's a bit harder to decode it, especially if someone knows a certain pattern, or if it's alphabetical or whatever the case may be. This will take care of that for you. So what I'm going to do is start with a list of unique values. So using the unique function here, and that's going to give me a list of names. Now, what I'm going to want to do is say assign some super generic names or values, like student 1 all the way through student 20. And so if someone knows the order of this list, or if it was in alphabetical, right, you'd want to add some randomization in here just so there's no bias at all in what names you're assigning to these people. So you can use Excel's random number generator. So between 0 and 1, it will return a value. This isn't terribly useful on its own, but what I can do is sort this so that way now I've got a completely random order. If you don't like the order, you can continue to resort it. It's always going to be random, right? And now once you're good with it, I can copy these values over here, and now they're paired up with those names. So the random number generator has done its job. So I've randomized it. And now I can insert a column here and assign that new name using just a VLOOKUP. So I'll take the actual name and cross-reference it on this table. And now just like that, I've linked up the names to those students. And I'll just copy this as values since I no longer need the formula in there. And the same thing with these values here. I'll copy and paste them as values. Okay. And so the benefit of doing it this way is, by keeping this table, student 14 is always going to be Isaac. If you make everything completely anonymous and you're not consistent with mapping, then you kind of lose that information because, let's say student 14 had multiple scores. If you randomized everything without regard to whether that was the same person or not, then you lose some of that information along the way to see, okay, if that person did well on a previous score or a previous test and did worse on this one. Then by assigning these names and using a lookup table, you're not losing that information. So someone could do an analysis on this based on, just these values, send you back the analysis. You do a lookup to cross-reference and find out who student 14 relates to. So you still get the analysis without losing any of the data. And that's why it's important to set up a table like that so that you can send it over. There's no personal information, and then you get it back, and it's done, and it's easy for you to manage. Another thing you may want to consider is if, let's say you've got, for business purposes, let's say you're testing out a template, you want to send out some information to a consultant, but you don't want to actually send in your real financial data. What you can do, again, this is really just for testing purposes, you can use the rand between function to say, let's put a random number between 1,000 and 5,000, right? Just so it looks realistic, as opposed to the rand function, which just gives you 0 and 1, and you're left with a decimal place. Here you can do the rand between, gives you values between 1,000 and 5,000, and so they could look like sales numbers for whatever period, and then override your actuals with this information, again, from a testing standpoint, to see if if a template works as designed. That way you're not sending in your actual financial information over to somebody, especially if it's someone you haven't worked with in the past. So those are some of the ways that you can help keep your information anonymous. It really comes back to making use of that random number generator, because that can allow you to apply random sorting that you have no control over. You can randomize it multiple times, and just to add layers of protection and being able to assign unique values or random values without having any biases there. So that's an easy way to do that and to keep your personal information anonymous.